Welcome back to another episode of Timebreaker Podcast. I'm your host, Daniel,
And I'm Anthony.
and welcome to episode 20. This one, we're taking a little things different, going a little bit outside the realm of strictly movies that we've been talking about, and we're talking about a little bit of kind of entertainment news, as well as something very near and dear to our hearts, which is Destiny. So, recently, in the news, probably you guys, if you follow any of these media outlets like Hollywood Reporter, Variety, any of those, you'll learn that Sony Interactive Entertainment, they bought Bungie for $3.6 billion. And for those of you that don't know, Bungie is the original Halo developer. They developed Halo 1, 2, 3, ODST, and Reach. And then they moved on to create their own IP, which is known as Destiny, and they're still developing that independently right now. So it's a pretty big, that's basically their only IP. So in a way, you could say Sony bought Destiny for $3.6 billion. But regardless, this is a pretty big deal.
Well, it's not even the fact that they now own Destiny. They also own any future world Bungie creates.
Yep. So any other future video games, properties, spin-off content that Bungie wants to create, it's now going to be under the Sony branch, I guess, if you want to say it like that.
Yeah, and I think there had to be a lot of motive behind this because Destiny alone probably is not. I mean, me and you play it, but it's like I don't think it's worth 3.6 billion at least.
Yeah, I mean it's definitely not a dead game. Like a lot more people play it than people expect, but I don't think it's like a huge AAA title that is competing at the highest level.
I don't think it's competing at the highest level, but I do think it has this very passionate community behind it, and it's not even. And I think this is the difference, that it's not a small community either. It's fairly big. Yeah, you have people from Destiny 1 that are now on Destiny 2, and then you have new players that have come on board with Destiny 2. And I think overall, just the amount of players has increased over the years. Maybe not. I don't know. It might have still peaked early Destiny 1. I mean, because this
maybe, yeah.
So the big deal about Destiny was that it was one of the biggest launching video games for a new IP, I believe, ever. I know
yeah.
It made a ton of money on day one. It made at least 500 million in sales on just day one back in 2014. So, I mean, it was a big deal. But back then, Bungie was owned, well, yeah, they were owned by Activision. But then, over the years, I think that relationships just deteriorated, and Bungie kind of just said, we want to go our own direction, and I think Activision just didn't see enough potential in the franchise anymore, and they pretty much gave Bungie the rights to Destiny, and they parted ways. And that's kind of led us to this moment where Bungie has been independent since they split from Activision in 2018, I believe.
I don't know.
And now they are under another roof, which for a lot of people, this is actually a pretty big controversy. I mean, a lot of people are not excited about this because Bungie separated from Activision because they didn't want to be constrained by that, and then they signed on, they pretty much sold themselves to another company again.
Yeah, and I mean, to me, I think the difference is, and from what they've said in their press releases, is that Sony seems to be a lot more freeing of an owner, if you will, than Activision is going to give Bungie a lot more freedom to do whatever they want. Bungie has said that Destiny is still going to be a cross-platform game, and so will the future of Destiny. And I think they said no exclusive content coming for PlayStation, and it just so to me it's just giving them more money to be more ambitious with Destiny and future titles than they were before.
Right, and for someone like us, it kind of piqued an interest as to, okay, there's gotta be something more behind this, because you don't spend $3.6 billion, have them as an independent developer and not a developer for Sony, and on top of that, also allow them to not have any exclusives, let them be multi-platform, let them have their own. They have their own board of directors that make decisions for Bungie, so they are still an independent developer that just so happens to be owned by Sony.
Right, yeah. So I think what we're kind of like leaning towards here with Timebreaker podcast, and kind of like the trends have been going this way, is that we might either get a potential Destiny series slash film type of media in the future, because I just think the signs are pointing that way. And Destiny is a big enough IP to like maybe have like some like leeway and to make some waves with that.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like the most logical because it's a lot of money to only use them for their games and their future properties. I mean, I feel like Sony needed there had to be some additional reason, and it might be that they're creating their own version of Game Pass, and that might be all this is Destiny would be an excellent game as a game for your service, and so that also might be all this is, and we're just speculating out of nowhere. But on the off chance, we think it is either a film series, which I think we're both kind of iffy on, but more we think it could potentially be a series that Sony produces now that they own the rights technically.
Right. And so like before we start delving into like that, what we think it's gonna be, what the possibilities are in like a film slash television adaptation, like I wanna just like take a step back, and bring us back to like kind of give us some credibility as to why we can talk about Destiny. So give us our experiences with it. Just so like, we're kind of credible with like how we kind of predict this thing's gonna pan out. So Destiny or Anthony, take us back memory lane as to how we got involved into this huge game that is down with Destiny.
Oh, on a warm summer day. No, we're not
Oh
going to go
God.
like this. But uh, my first experience with the game was, I believe I saw it at E3 2013. And
Oh, the God tier trailer.
yeah, and then they had a beta summer 2014, and that was my first experience playing the game. I played it on the 360 because that was a thing. So now that was 2 generations ago. That's crazy. This game has moved across this many generations. Um, and yeah, I mean, initial response to the game was really good. Like everyone was psyched for it. It only had, I think, the entire Cosmodrome section of the game, and it had the Devil's Lair strike, which the strike was how's the best way to put it? It was like the highlight of the beta. It was the most unexpected portion of it, and it was what a lot of people took away from it. And so obviously we didn't know each other then, but we both ended up actually ordering this game on the Xbox One. Uh, and it came out and was borderline a disaster at launch. There were good elements, but its story was an absolute convoluted mess. It definitely felt like it was tacked together last minute story wise. And the leveling system was also just a train wreck at the time. And so I only played the game when it first launched, probably for a month before I dropped it. And I don't know what your experience was with that.
So yeah, so going into Destiny 1, so me and my friends at the time super hardcore Bungie. Like we were super into Halo. That was our thing. Halo Reach was our game. And Bungie left Halo, and so they were making waves. Halo 4 had already come out, right?
Yes.
Okay, so Halo 4 already came out. So that was, and Halo 4 was that, but this new game was coming out from Bungie, the OG Halo creators, and so we were super intrigued. And we saw the concept art and like the kind of what kind of game it was going to be, first person space adventure, killing all these aliens. So kind of Halo-esque, but with a little bit more freedom and completely different lore. So we were very intrigued. And I remember seeing that first trailer at E3, super blown away by the mechanics and just how like innovative it seems at the time, and how we still don't have some of those mechanics, but whatever. And then so yeah, that beta came out and completely blew us away with that strike.
Yeah, and some of the features that still aren't on the game, I know the one I highlight a lot that was in that initial gameplay demo was the fact that if you joined your friends, you would actually, like, you'd see your ship fly in, drop you off, and your ship would fly away. And that was one of the coolest things in that trailer, and it never happens in game.
Yeah, to this day it has not happened, and that was the thing that like blew me away the most in that trailer. But regardless, like, it was still cool. And yeah, that beta, they gave you most of the Cosmodrome, which is like the first like playable area up until the strike, which that whole strike took you like through all the bosses, and like that Fallen Walker was essentially like one of the final bosses or whatever. And that was just a really cool, it added like mechanics that like I wasn't used to, like having to like destroy the legs in order to destroy the core of the walker. So it just like made you think about combat a little bit more. And then just like the having the different subclasses was cool. I remember like me and my friends hopped into the beta. I was a hunter, my friend had a warlock, and another friend was a titan. So we had like the whole tree, and it was a very cool experience to have that vibe. And then we played it. Kind of fell off around the time when like Vaulted Glass, the first raid, came out, because like we didn't have enough people for it, and then there wasn't really enough to do, and so I didn't really get back into it until the later expansions.
I know when you came back, but I'll get to that. So roughly we both dropped off around the same point. I got back into it about 3 months post-release, so this was right after the first DLC had come out, The Dark Below, which a lot of people really... I would say it's very mixed, because a lot of people do not like the raid that was involved. But that's getting ahead. I started raiding in the game, I think, February of the following year, so we're now, about 6 months into the lifespan of the game. I had started doing raids. The second DLC came out in May. That was when I'd convinced Daniel to come and try the game again with the House of Wolves expansion. And yeah,
you'll notice this is a consistent theme where Anthony is convincing me to come back to play Destiny.
Yeah, this is the first time now. So if we're gonna keep a record of this was the first time I bring him back. We played so he came back in May. House of Wolves came out in May. We grinded House of Wolves out throughout the summer. We did Crota Zen throughout the summer. We did Vaulted Glass. We did tons and tons of stuff. We did just a ton of what the base game offered. And Taken King, the first full expansion to Destiny, I'm not gonna lie, I was pretty mad when it was announced, because they were doing so many changes for Taken King that it almost felt like we had been like a trial group.
I think like that's just part of like the Destiny life cycle. Like they're constantly like revamping stuff and improving stuff. Like we're on Weapons 3.0, or Weapons 3.0 is coming. Void 3.0 is coming. Lots of like multiple versions of systems in the game are coming out now that have been tried and tested. And, it kind of sucks. You get burned because like you waste all this time and getting used to something. But in the end, like you just got to understand, like it's for the better of the game, and like it comes with a better product in the long run, I guess.
Yeah, and so my biggest gripe wasn't even about the expansion itself. It was really just the pricing point. I felt stabbed in the back on the fact that up to this point, if you had bought the base game plus its DLC, you were now $95 in, and now they wanted you to fork over $40, and then new players could come in for just $60. And that was, I don't know, that was a pretty aggravating experience. I eventually started to get over it, because pretty much every expansion has now done that.
Yeah, it's just the life cycle of a Destiny player. Like if you're a consistent Destiny player, you are getting used to being hoed by money. At the time it was really bad when they were under Activision. I think that had a part to do with it, because you would pay all this money to like play the current DLC up to date, and so doing it real time when it was fresh, when it was hot, and then like if you just waited like a season or two, you could get everything for a much lower price, and that's what like really burned me and Anthony and a lot of other players. But yeah, like he said, we got over it.
But eventually, even like it's not like 6 months later, like I came to before the game even came out. I think a month later, I just said, you know what, I'm not willing to put this game down over the money, because even at 14, I mean, the expansion wasn't so expensive I mean, it wasn't hard to ask to get from a parent at that time. So I pretty much forked over the money. We were doing a way that we were getting the expansion by paying one time. We both got it, and so we both ended up with the expansion. I had other friends as well that were playing the game, and so overall it just created a very easy way to do endgame content and such. But Daniel here still has not completed King's Fall.
I'll do it.
Yeah, one day when it's on Destiny
D2.
2. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's 20 times harder. Yeah.
And so then Taken King came out, pretty well received. Nowadays it's it's not even borderline. It is nostalgic at this point because it was really so long ago, and a lot of people contribute a lot of what made them love the game to that expansion because it fundamentally,
like, it's definitely like peak Destiny history for a lot of people.
Yeah, and it fundamentally changed a lot of ways the game worked. And I'm not gonna lie, it's one of my favorite expansions they've ever done. But then we kind of hit the point that it took Destiny a lot of time to figure out how to do, and I think it's why even today there probably is not as many active players as there was during the Taken King era, and it was Bungie had a really big problem pushing content out. Taken King launched in September 2015, and the first update for the game came so the next content update for the game came out in April 2016. So you're looking at a 7-month drought.
Oh yeah, wasn't that like the quote unquote like the spring update?
Yeah, the April update, and it brought an exclusive mission to PlayStation. And at the time we were on Xbox, and that I mean the whole experience was kind of insulting. Because they had done this already. We had lost content from year one that they'd given us with Taken King. Taken King had been announced, and they announced more PlayStation exclusive content. The spring update came out, and they gave more PlayStation exclusive content. And then I ditched the game by April. I had already pretty much been done with the game. I think I ditched around February and came back for the April update. And then there was no new content, so I ditched again until Rise of Iron. But a lot of people, they were simply drained by April, and they didn't want to play anymore. And they were kind of just insulted with the lack of content for the last year, and I know a lot of people didn't jump into the next expansion. Heck, we were the only two people I knew that played that expansion.
Yeah, that's probably like upon the point where like Destiny lost a lot of its people, and they might have never come back. And that has been a consistent problem for Destiny, is the lack of content being put out even into Destiny 2. I think recently they fixed that problem, but yeah, it was a really big thing for them for a really long time. And like you said, until Rise of Iron came out, like we were the only two people that played it. And it's not the greatest expansion, but I do like kind of the few things that it did. A few things right. I really liked I thought the new social space was cool. I thought all the stuff with the Iron Lords was cool. I really liked Siva as a whole, and like the enemies, and just like the little spin on the Fallen, and just the weapons it gave us. And I have not done that raid, although I'm hoping it comes back as a legacy raid because a lot of people speak very highly of that raid.
Yeah, and so Rise of Iron, so this is expansion 2 now. Again, pretty well received story wise, pretty well received mechanics wise, and really well received for its raid. But I do think it is an era of Destiny that is probably the most untouched by the community. And I think what also hurt this was the fact that at the same time Rise of Iron was getting announced, they already announced they were making a Destiny 2 coming out the following year. And so it kind of just felt like a way of pushing an expansion out to push an expansion out. And I know a lot of people just weren't happy with that.
Yeah, it felt like this was kind of like an in-between phase, like how much time and effort are they really putting into Rise of Iron versus, we have Destiny 2 on the way, so like should I just focus on that? And then I don't know if it was revealed at this time or not, but it eventually did get revealed that everything you had in Destiny 1 was not going to progress towards Destiny 2, like your whole vault, everything you had wasn't going to carry over. So there was this whole thing like what am I grinding for anymore? Like if I'm just gonna start fresh in D2 again. So that was a big thing too.
Yeah, this was so Bungie made a few promises at like before Destiny was ever released. I think about a year before release, they made a lot of these promises, and this was the first time they'd actually pretty much angered the community because they were going against what they had said. And pretty much they told you you were going to be able to take your gear, you were going to be able to take your character with you on this 10-year journey. And they'd kind of already soured this because they had started to lock gear at a certain power level and you couldn't get it higher, and this was their way of forcing you to use new weapons. But this was the first time where they're like, no, none of your gear, none of your stats, nothing's coming with. And I know this soured a lot of people towards Destiny 2 from the get-go.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, like at the one of the biggest stories with Destiny is at the time it's very frustrating for the player, but if you step back and look at it for the lifespan of Destiny, like there are actually good changes. And so like if you think about this, if Destiny was this 10-year journey and if we were still on Destiny 1, like Destiny would absolutely suck right now. Like it was very necessary for Destiny 2 and this kind of like next gen era of like the game to like happen in order for it to progress as a whole.
Yeah, a lot of things. So if they had never made Destiny 2, a lot of things would have had to have been changed in pretty much title updates. And I don't know how well that would have went over because you would have essentially been having to completely transform the game while it was still running. There was no way to move to another planet from one. Like if you were exploring the Cosmodrome, you couldn't go and easily transfer to Venus. You would have to go to orbit and then relaunch. And there's just a lot of little. It's like these little tiny things that Destiny 2 added in, but nowadays, like I wouldn't be playing the game if I had to continuously go to orbit anymore.
Right, and just like graphically, it's just completely not at the same level. And you think about the capacity that Destiny 1 has, like basically if we were still in there, like only the current expansion would not be vaulted. Like everything else would have to be vaulted to make space for new stuff if we were on the Destiny 1, probably.
Yeah, and so going into Destiny 2, this was now the second year in a row that me and Daniel had both played the game, but no one we knew had joined us. So now this is 2 years in. This continued until borderline year 4. It was a very long. The people we had played Taken King with were pretty much at the point with the game they didn't want to. They didn't want to even look at it. They didn't want to touch it. They didn't want to hear about it. And Destiny 2. The Red War story, it was okay. I'm not a big fan of it. I know some people really like it, but there was a lot of things they did that I just it kind of soured the campaign. They pretty much make you lose your light, and then one mission later you now have your light again. And I mean it was just such a big marketing ploy. Like you lose your light, how is the game gonna work? And pretty much their way of dealing with that was, oh no, we're giving you your light back one mission in, and that was pretty annoying. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, I mean, I've come to not expect a lot out of vanilla campaigns from Destiny, either Destiny 1 campaign or Destiny 2.
Yeah, granted though, it was a big step up from what the base campaign for Destiny 1 was, so I will at least give it that much credit. The two mini DLCs, so they ended up releasing two DLCs that were about the size of The Dark Below and House of Wolves, which came out 3 or 4 years prior at this point. We did not run those. So we played the game probably, again, this was now the second time this has happened with a new game. I believe we played for a month or two, and then we ditched, and I know we played those two mini DLCs, but I don't remember a single thing about them, to be honest.
Yeah, I remember because I didn't even play Leviathan. That was the launch raid, right?
Yeah, I only did it like 3
that.
years later. I did it in 2020.
Oh, okay.
Or, yeah, in 2020, right before they vaulted it.
Okay, yeah. So I didn't do any of this stuff at launch. And then, yeah, when those two DLCs came out, I'm pretty sure we came back and ran the story. But, like, the story sucked. Granted, Warmind wasn't as bad as Curse of Osiris,
I thought
but
Curse of Osiris was pretty bad. Yeah.
Curse of Osiris was like pretty easily among the community the worst content Destiny's ever put out.
Yeah. Now we're starting to get into modern day Destiny. We both ditched the game again. So, and this time it was for a while.
Me especially. This is my big peace out.
So, Forsaken came out in September 2018, and this was the first time since the game had come out that I did not buy an expansion, and he did not buy an expansion. This was our first year of just saying no. We were pretty turned off with the 2 mini DLCs, and the fact they were killing Cade. For me personally, it didn't sit well, and so I just really wasn't interested. I didn't end up playing this until summer of 2019, so we're looking at almost 9 months after release, and it was only because they had discounted it to, I believe I got it for $10 or $15, and that was the only reason I jumped back into the game. And that lasted for about probably 3 months. And then I ditched the game again because I wasn't willing to shell out the money for Shadowkeep, and if you've ever played Destiny, you know that when another expansion comes out, the game borderline becomes unplayable. And I know a lot of people don't like that, and I don't blame them. It's pretty aggravating.
Yeah, it's definitely Destiny is the type of game to like want you to be in that current season of stuff. Granted, it's not like a World of Warcraft subscription model where you have to keep paying to play, but it kind of gives it out in chunks where you have to like pay X for this amount of content for this season or whatever. So it's a different model, but yeah, if you get caught behind, then you're kind of stuck.
Yeah, and I believe I bought Shadowkeep probably in December 2019 because it went on sale over Christmas, but we didn't play it, I think, until February or March oh geez, no, it would have been before. Actually, it might have. So pandemic hit, and I believe I jumped back into the game, and I think that was why we ran Shadowkeep. And so at the time we were playing on the Xbox One X version, and that was my time being done with the Xbox version of the game. I finished the Shadowkeep campaign and pretty much said if I'm going to keep playing this, I will not play it on Xbox because anyone who has played on an Xbox One, PS4, PS4 Pro, or PS4 or an HDD on PC know that this game's load times are horrendous if you're not on an SSD.
And especially with the game getting bigger and stuff. And
my experience playing Shadowkeep was I was having a good time with it until I had to load, and it kind of just pulled me out of the experience, and I wasn't going to do that if I was going to keep playing. And so I switched to PC once we had finished the campaign. Daniel ditched the game, so Daniel's out. I'm still playing. Now I'm on PC. I bought Beyond Light when it came out in 2020. I, for months, tried to convince him to get back into the game, and it took him getting the Rona himself to finally say, all right, I'll give it another chance. And so that brings us up to where the series is now. And I like Beyond Light.
Yeah, so like in that shuffle, I played Forsaken. I don't know when I played it, but I did actually like go through that campaign and play it. I don't know if it was with you or if I just did it myself, but I did play it in that break. But yeah, it took me getting COVID-19 and being kind of out of commission from society to sit down, and Anthony's like, play Destiny, and I was like, okay, because it was free or whatever, right?
On the Game Pass.
Because of Game Pass, yeah. So and the whole thing with Beyond Light is you can use darkness now. And, Destiny has forever been stuck on this 3 subclass system, which, it's cool. It gives you that freedom, but, a little bit repetitive. So now we got a 4th one. And if I was a Titan, maybe we wouldn't be having this conversation because Titan stasis kind of sucks. But thank God Hunter stasis is awesome. And so I played Beyond Light, fell in love with the new subclass. I thought Europa, it's my new favorite location. And yeah, I was pretty blown away. And I've I had no idea about this whole seasonal content stuff that Destiny has been doing until I experienced it firsthand, and I thought I was very impressed with that content model. And so yeah, I was just very impressed with all the new changes that Bungie has made to the game since, for quality of life and just improving it up until like optimizing it for the future. And I was very blown away. And now we are back into that Destiny grind. And all my life there's a lot of things in media and culture and stuff that I'm like huge fans of. Like Anthony and I are huge fans of Star Wars, huge fans of Marvel and everything. I'm a huge fan of Halo and stuff. But, I've never been a part of a fandom or a part of something since its inception. And I think Destiny is that one kind of an exception because we were there beta, we were there day one, and we've kind of been with it and seen it grow and change throughout its entire lifespan versus these other things where we've just kind of like jumped into them halfway through their lifespan.
Yeah, and it's been, I mean, it's definitely cool to be able to sit back and like know what the differences are. The game is definitely in a better place than it was, and I don't think Sony would have bought it if it wasn't in the place it is. There's an expansion coming out this month, and yeah, I mean, I think the game had to grow to this point for a company as big as Sony to want to make an investment like this into it. But again, like we've been saying, I have a feeling there's something else coming with this.
Yeah, and so like from our experience with Destiny, like Destiny is a huge game. It's got lots of lore, even lots of lore in books and like data entries that like we haven't even read, but it's there and it's huge, and so it definitely has the content and lore to be able to offer up to like a Destiny movie or a Destiny series. I'm personally leaning more towards a series because I just feel like in general, video games, they're so huge and so immersive and expansive. It's really hard to cram like, a huge video game into a 2 hour movie. So I think like if you do like a 6-episode series, 8-episode series, 10-episode series, it's a lot easier to get involved in a series versus a movie. And then also like series are a lot easier funded, easier to put on a streaming service or whatnot, and versus funding a huge movie, right, for that one shot.
Yeah, but granted, so here's the other side of this. Granted, Sony does not own a streaming service. I don't think they have any intention to own one, and so that might put a damper to any plans for a TV show, and it would have to be a theatrical movie release. And I don't know if the audience is there for that. I think it could perform really well as a TV show, but as a movie, I kind of struggle to see it making enough money at the box office to justify itself.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And also with the whole, not that it can't do it, like I said, Destiny has a lot to offer, but what I would advise for Destiny to do is to shy away from anything we've already covered in game. There's a whole lot of lore of like before we get revived as a guardian, there's the Battle of Twilight Gap. There's like all these other characters that we could, like the origin of Saint 14 of Zavala. You could have early Cade, early Ikora, how the Iron Banner came into fruition, like how Shaxx came to lead the crew. Like there's all these people that we've heard about. Like let's see that story versus like give me Kingsfall the movie. Like why would I watch that? I can just go play Kingsfall and it'd be way better than watching the Kingsfall movie,
I mean, I could kind of see it both ways. I could see them starting with a show that pretty much is a recap of what we've done because it would be a good way to catch new players up. It would be a good way to bring people in. But yeah, I could also see the other way where it's like we've done it, we've seen it, and players have lived it. So let's give them something new. But yeah, I mean, I could see it go both ways.
Yeah, I just personally would like to see something that we haven't done.
Yeah, I would also agree because I mean, well, it'd be cool to see us kill Crota for the 80 billionth time.
Right.
There's
We've already
other
killed
things.
Crota 80 billion times.
Oh,
yeah.
Dares of Eternity, I've killed him 80 billion times alone.
Oh, okay, yeah. But yeah, and like there's so much history and lore that to go into. that we don't even have to catch up to like current Destiny stuff. Like they could make so much content before even that, and they would be totally fine with that.
Yeah, and so it's just there's not a lot of stuff we can speculate on. There's a lot of things Sony can do with the property. Maybe they bought it for their next property. I mean, it's really just a mixed bag, but I don't know. It's an interesting sign when you see a company as big as Sony make a purchase like this.
Right, and like we're only talking about this too because like Sony has shown interest in doing this sort of thing. Like, Sony has the PlayStation exclusive Ghost of Tsushima, and that is currently in development for like a movie, I'm pretty sure. And they have other things going on in development where they're trying to like build this like all-encompassing entertainment, industry of like games and movies. Like they have Spider-Man and we have Spider-Man movies, that kind of deal too. So it is a very plausible thing to expect some type of media come out of Destiny that is not just a video game.
Yeah, and I think really what's going to end up happening is we're just going to have to wait and see how Uncharted and stuff do coming up. If they do well, and I think they're already anticipating Uncharted does well. So hypothetically, if it does well, I mean, it would definitely be a path forward for them, I think. And I just feel like this motive behind it either needs to be pretty much something like Game Pass, where the reason Sony bought it was for it to go to Game Pass, or they're doing something. So Bungie, I don't know if they are talking only about Destiny when they say there's no PlayStation exclusive content, but there is that possibility, that give it time and they're going to pretty much show us that there was a master plan and the next Bungie game's exclusive. I mean, there is something like that can happen as well. I feel it's very unlikely given the stance Bungie is taking on this. Bungie has been owned. Well, I don't know if Microsoft actually owned them or not, but they have partnered with multiple companies before, and I don't feel like they now jump into a third partnership knowing... Right, yeah. I mean, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Like, I don't think they'd enter into something like this for a third time with the same outcome likely to happen. I think there's something bigger, and they continuously talk about the fact that Sony is completely behind whatever their future intentions are. And so really it just seems like Sony is an investor, not even an owner, but just an investor into their vision.
Yeah, that's the vibe I get. And, like you said, like it's, we can speculate here all we want, but until time will tell like what we're going to get in the future. So yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed. That's our little take on Destiny. We could go into hours about Destiny, but we wanted to keep it kind of simple and just share our experiences, and kind of speculate with what this whole series or future with Sony might be. But that's been our episode 20 about Sony buying Bungie. Hope you guys enjoyed, and we'll see you guys next week. Take care.
See ya.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of Timebreaker Podcast.
If you did enjoy it, please be sure to drop a like and subscribe, and make sure to ring that notification bell for new episodes every Wednesday.
See you next week.